Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to the Ask Greg series. I am Greg Alevris with Horizon Business Development and an Archibus aficionado. I'm here to discuss product capability and share experiences with the broad functionality of Archibus. Today we are going to talk about team space and how you can take advantage of it. We'll go through first the concept of scheduling space, and then we'll talk about a way to use it, especially in these times of COVID. And then we'll wrap up, discuss next steps, and get into some questions and answers. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And I'm going to actually disable the camera for the time being. So we'll turn that off and bring that up again at the end of the session. So let's talk a little bit about the webinar guidelines. As you probably are familiar by now, joining webinars, we have everybody on mute to make sure that we have no background noise. Give us time to go through the session. At the completion of the presentation, we will open the meeting for questions. A couple ways that you can do that. One is you can use the chat box or question box to submit. You can typically find it on the control panel of the Outlook meeting there. The other is if you prefer to actually verbally ask your question, you can essentially go ahead and raise your hand and we'll unmute you and do that. So that is our guide. And let's go ahead and get started. So with Horizon, obviously as we go through a lot of these sessions, we are here to kind of help you make sure you take advantage of them. And that starts with helping you develop a roadmap of where you want to go and what you want to do. By now, many of you recognize that Archibus is a broad IWMS package and has a lot of capabilities. And the best thing about it is that you can take advantage of as much or as little of it as you need. Our job is to help provide, trusted advice as to how to guide you to take advantage of the solution and give you the best, possible, simplest way of doing what is needed. We will work with you and help analyze the business of what you're doing so that we can be effective in deploying Archibus with you. And obviously, as you finish the support, we offer a variety of training and tech support options that'll help you, through the remainder of the life cycle of the product. So with Archibus and space and teams, one of the things that I wanted to focus on was, the notion that we really want to look at a different way of occupancy. For the longest time, we've always dealt with the concept that employees were assigned to an individual location and they belong to a specific organization. Well, for a number of reasons that started evolving first in the 20th century, now especially into the 21st century. And of course, in these past few months, things have even changed more dramatically. But the goal is that we can assign people to a team rather than a specific location, so that if they're coming to the office, they can grab an available space. And that typically follows the same model we were used to in terms of aligning them to an organization. At the same time, we can group employees into different projects and give them a space where they can gather and work and collaborate. And we can also use team space as a way of managing some of the swing space that we need to help coordinate, some of the many moves. And the goal here is that for each of the teams that we set up, they do have locations, but the locations are not permanently assignable to any one employee. Rather, they are shareable by the employees. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started into the question of the day, which is, as we especially now work from home, and it is challenging enough as it is, will it even be harder to work in the office during the pandemic? And I actually have set up a couple of examples that I hope will answer some of those questions as we look at ways that Archibus can help you help them. And by the way, I just sat through a webinar for the Archibus partners, and there's actually some even new features we look forward to sharing with you in the future about back to work. So the first thing I wanted to address is the scheduling and use of space. And in this case, like I said, we're not going to be looking at setting up a permanent, place. And if we recognize that many of us are managing office environments that have typical office and workstations assigned to individual employees that may look something like this, that's great. But a lot of us have been adding a lot of agile layouts with a variety of flexible workspaces to give us different ways for employees to come into work and collaborate and work effectively. But what we want to do is basically look at how we can take our existing space without going through any heartburn by simply using the data features of TeamSpace to help convert what we already have without going through any sort of layout space. And so for this exercise, we're going to make a couple simple assumptions. We're going to create a team space for a project by the facilities division to help coordinate back to work, which will start in October. So we need a place where all of them can come to work and collaborate doing this kind of activity. And so we identify the space that would be assigned to the facilities division and the team that we're going to set up to do this. And we essentially empty it out of any permanent assignments, and we put people in those places. So in essence, we create a series of vacant workstations and offices. Once we've identified those spaces and assigned them to the team area that we're working on, and a space can only belong to one team at a time, the next thing we want to do is identify the people that will be a part of this team. That doesn't mean they're all going to come and be at the location at the same time, but when they do, they'll be able to take advantage of the workstations or offices that are available for them to use. And in their case, because they're helping plan and organize activities, they'll be gathering there on a regular basis in between doing everything else that they do for facilities. So for our project, one of the things that we want to do is establish the timeline for the space at hand. So if we were looking at setting this up a week or so ago on the 27th of July, we have no rooms or we have no employees that we want to work on. But if we advance our time going forward, we know that we're going to have up to 35 employees working in 30 spaces. And so when the project kicks off and actually we start setting up the team space beginning August 3rd, we have a total of 30 rooms with a total of 35 employees that will be sharing the space. Now you'll notice that the capacity is 22. And the reason being is there's still some facilities people that actually use offices, and we're letting them retain them for the time being. But that means that everybody else that comes into that space will have to, share whatever other spaces are available, which gives us that seat ratio of almost 1.6 people per seat in the area. And then at the end of the project, which is right at the beginning of October, we release everything back to its normal, occupancy and use. And that's as simple as it is for scheduling the use of space from a team perspective. We can either set a start date with no end date, or if we're doing something project-based like this planning exercise for back to work, we give it a 2-month window from the beginning of August to the beginning of October. And we neatly set that up. And as you can tell, by the end of the project, there is no other event coming up, and we return back to normal. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is look at the result of the exercise for planning that the facilities division went through. And we're actually going to set up teams and neighborhoods with the mindset of working with, back to work kind of mindset. So actually looking at a more, typical solution. So since the facility division has to plan back to work, one of the things that we want to do is consolidate administrative services division into one building. What we'll do is we'll take all the employees across the 2 buildings and put them into one. We'll basically create seating assignments for alternating workstations for odd and even weeks, if you will. And we'll create 2 work groups to work in those 2 work weeks. And that way the employees can either come to the office 1 week and then they'll stay home the next, come to work the following, stay home the next, so on and so forth. And we assume that a bunch of people won't be coming to the office, so we have quite a bit of flexibility built into the space that we have. So I'll walk you through how we set this all up in the system. The first is we're going to create the 2 groups for the Administrative Services Division. I'll show you the example of one. In this example, I'm going to be using videos to help facilitate this, just to walk through specific sequences. So we go directly into the space console of Archibus. And in this case, we're going to work in a specific building. So we identified the building, which is the TGD Technology Center. We're going to work on the 4th floor. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a team. We've already created the Back to Work Group A, and now we just want to do the same thing for Back to Work Group B. And you can see Group A in the purple highlights with the alternating pattern between workstations. So they'll be working the odd weeks. And now we're going to create Group B, and lo and behold, we'll call it BTW Group B, and it'll be the Back to Work Group B, and so we'll go through the process of setting up all of the data for, creating this group. Of course, it always helps if you type correctly. Naturally, we want to pick a highlight pattern that's easily discernible from the purple, so we'll go into the yellowish spectrum, if you will, to do that. So we'll pick a nice kind of dark yellow orange color that we can work with. The team function is back to workspace. The category is for across multiple departments within the facility or administrative services division, and this is going to be the back to workspace for even weeks in the plan that we're setting forth. So we create this information. It's pretty straightforward, and now that we have the group, now we need to go through the steps necessary to create the rooms and then also assign the employees. So the first thing we want to do, and we'll kind of speed through this a little bit, but we need to create and pick the rooms from Team A and Team B. So here we use the Space Console. Gives us a great feature, and to guide us through this, what I'm going to do is go ahead and do the highlights for borders, where I'm going to turn on the team layer. So that way the purple denotes the Group A. And I want to pick all of the spaces that will be assigned to Group B. So we'll zoom into the floor plan here and begin the assignment process. It's very straightforward. We pick the assign feature. We select the rooms to be assigned. So we point and click, very straightforward. So we don't have to do any fancy work here. Now to help speed things up, I'm gonna fast forward here a little bit so that we can don't have to watch going through this process one room at a time. And further, I've sped it up, overlapped the video a little bit. And now we're just gonna finish collecting all the rooms that need to be cataloged. And then once we finish cataloging the rooms, what we're gonna do is commit those changes just like we would any other space change in the console. And now we've assigned those rooms, and now we have our alternating pattern for workstations and offices in the floor. So one of the things that we want to do here, first and foremost, of course, is for both Groups A and Group B, is we take the list of rooms that we've identified. So I'll show you the list of rooms so you can see that assign button actually picked all the rooms that were necessary. So for Group A here, what we're going to do is go through and select all the room records, and we're going to make a setting change. And here's where we're going to use the schedule feature. We're going to schedule the back to work time to begin on October 5th. So we'll fast forward the calendar into the 5th of October. And right now we project that for the foreseeable future through July, the beginning of July of next year, we expect to be using this work pattern. Of course, this can all change by either being done sooner or extend the time for later. But for now, we've made an assumption that July is the date we want to say for this. In this way, we have done the scheduling of the spaces that need to be allocated for the room. Well, now we have to do the same thing for the employees. So what we're going to do is go ahead and proceed and go back into the space console. And again, we'll work with our building, NCO5, just because we want to focus on the fourth floor and we want to work with the teams. And once we go to the personnel aspect of the space console and select teams, what we're going to do is take a look at how the team's data changes over time. So beginning effective the 3rd of August, when we look at the data, we're going to grab the administrative services and filter all the employees that we need to find, which will be down in the box in the bottom here, which we call available employees. And we've already added the Group A employees, so now I'm going to go ahead and add Group B. This is a feature I wanted to mention to Archibus about filtering the records that don't have any values in them, but that's a separate discussion. So I'll go ahead and speed through this. Bottom line is we point and click all the employees that we want to add to Group B. And as we finish that process, we add the final set of employees. And one thing to recognize is we have 2 pages of data here. So I've done the first page of data. And once I've added the employees, I need to make sure that I get to page 2. And once I'm on page 2, I need to add whatever other employees have not been completed. So in this case, we can see we have a few employees left from the page 2, if you will, that need to be added to the equation. So these are all the employees that will ultimately be part of the Group B assignments, and we'll go to the Group B rooms that we've selected. So much like we did for the rooms, we have to do the same thing about selecting the list of employees and making sure that we assign the date range to match the date range of the rooms. In this case, we want to go to October 5th, and we want it to end on July 2nd of 2021. Recognize that we can change the end date at any point in time or keep it permanently if that's what we need to do. So now I have done my work with the rooms first, the employees second, and now the goal here is to essentially look at what the status of the 2 groups is, helping us manage. So what we're going to do is one more run through and basically just show you how the system views the data with the different timelines involved. So much like before, we'll go back and look at our 4th floor on the TG Technology Center. I'm going to highlight the division information so you can see the purplish color is for the different teams. That one denotes admin services. And we can see the regular highlights for the divisions. Our facilities divisions in the lower right corner. Now what I'm going to do is look at one of the reports that's available from Teams. And what we're going to do is do a comparison of all the Teams data as of a specific date. So if we look at the team room statistics effective August 3rd, our facilities division that we did in the first exercise is there with the 30 rooms and the 35 employees, but neither Group A or Group B are there because they don't fall within that date range that we're talking about. let's use our search feature to advance the date into the date range. So we'll skip ahead a couple months, look at what things look like on the 16th of November. And when we go back and look, you can see the highlight pattern for the two Group A and Group B, but now facilities is out because they're no longer a team assigned there. And again, if we look at the compare room statistics, we can see that Groups A and B are effectively in the analysis. We've taken 110 employees and alternated them between week 1 and week 2 of our exercise here, and gives us the flexibility to allow people to come into the office without having to overwhelm the space as we do any work around the other building and also adjust, what we're doing within the system. And then finally, what we're going to do is look at post the timeline. So if we move out in time to next year beyond the 2nd of July, let's say we go to the 16th of August in 2021. Now, if we do our comparison, the A and B teams are no longer there, and neither, of course, is facilities. And we're back just to the regular teams that we have from our previous sample data that we're working on. So this gives you a quick idea of some of the ways that you can use the stuff. So let's give a quick summary here. One, TeamSpace, when we first thought about it, was to help with a lot of the agile work environments that were being set up and give people the flexibility to both work at home and collaborate more effectively in the office. But if you think about it, using the alternating pattern we set up, TeamSpace provides the option for social distancing by allowing us to alternate workstations and schedule weeks so that we don't have people working next to each other, giving them a little bit of safe distance. It also gives us time to work on programs to make sure that the space that was used one week is cleaned. So that way we can kind of keep the place disinfected and further increase the employee safety, and also, of course, reduce headcount. And finally, it's something that we can use both for our traditional offices. So you don't have to go through and make dramatic changes to your work environments. You just have to think about how you're going to schedule the spaces that you have without going through any sort of changes. But if you already have those changes, or if you're planning those changes, they can come into effect. So what's next on the agenda? Episode 3 will be managing incidents, training, and PPE. So we'll be hitting some of the safety aspects of back to work, and we'll be happy to do that. That will happen on August 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So we hope you can make it back for that one. And if you have questions between now and then, please submit them to Ask Greg at horizonsolutions.com, and I will work with our team to get you the best answer. If you want to, catch up with past episodes, we will be sending a mail out with a link to the presentation so that you can view it. And in the coming weeks, we will be posting the catalog of presentations we do and provide a central place where you can go back and revisit these over and over again. So with that, I am going to open it up for questions. I am going to re-enable my camera so you can see me here. And Abby, Shoshana, if you guys can help start reading some of the questions, that would be helpful. Or if anybody raises their hand, let me know and we'll speak to them.
So the first question that we have here is, what version of Archibus is TeamSpace available on?
That's a great question. And so Archibus TeamSpace is actually available dating back to either version 22 or 23, and it's in the Space console. So a lot of what I showed you today, you can do with your version 23, 24, or 25. I was showing version 25.1 today.
And adding on to that, is there anything that needs to be customized for a business within these features?
No, everything that we showed was done off the shelf without any changes to the system. So that's one of the features of Archibus is they made a nice addition of team space without having to, do any extra customization or configuration.
All right, and the next question is, do you have any recommendations for new staff computers? We want to ensure Archibus is running to the best of its capabilities for our IWMS team.
Well, I'm always a personal favorite is to have the bestest and fastest computers. Everybody is more mobile, so one thing is to think more along the lines of laptops and portable computers than desktops, and anything with an i7 type processor with 16 plus 32 gigabytes of RAM is fine, and then it's just a matter of what size screen and weight you want to carry. I myself like something that is no more than 3 pounds, because computers are tough to lug around and we're all very mobile nowadays. Next.
The next one is, if someone switches departments, is it possible to automatically have the system switch what team that person is on based on where their new position is, or do I have to manually make the switch every time?
So there's two parts to that question. One is there's the organizational aspect of an employee. If they belong to a department and that department is changed in the HR system, Archibus can integrate with the HR system, which Horizon can help with, or you can do yourselves, and that can happen automatically. The second part of that question is if I'm reassigned to another team, that does require a manual update of the team's records to assign the person to a team. If you remember back at the beginning slides, an employee can belong to one or more team in the system, but a room can only belong to one team at a time. Next.
The next one is Archibus planning new enhancements to managing space?
Absolutely. Yes. Like I said a few moments ago at the beginning of the session, I just watched an update webinar that told us about some of the new back to work features that are further enhancing the ability of Archibus around planning back to work for employees and managing social distancing from within the space console without having to go to AutoCAD. It was actually a pretty impressive demo, and I look forward to getting my hands on the software and sharing some of that with people in the coming weeks.
And the next one that we have is, what can Horizon do to help me manage real-time utilization of team space?
So real-time utilization is something that gets into the whole concept of using sensors. So one of the things that we've done with a few of our customers, of course, is the ability to help capture the sensor data and then integrate that with Archibus to help measure what the utilization of space is. Because as much as the team space I showed today was based on estimates and plan to be done, we always want to use the real-time data to help us understand what is really happening. And as we can tell right now, not many people are coming into the office. So some of our assumptions, would be less. So even though we might plan for 30% of the people coming to the office, we may be getting less than 10% as an example. So the real-time utilization allows us to integrate sensor data. And that's something we've done for some clients and we'd be happy to discuss.
And one more that I have here is, I have a specific question in regards to how to implement this feature ourselves. Should I email the Ask Greg email or someone else?
Yeah, that's the best way to get started. So if you want to know more about the Ask Greg feature, we'll start by helping discern what you need, and then I'll connect you with either your project team or one of our resources to help you best plan the way to get forward. It might be something simple as some additional training. It might be just pointing you to the right help file. Depends on what you're trying to do, but I'll help get you started down that road. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time. And again, we try to make these short and simple and easy so that you become familiar with a lot of capabilities you may not be using. I look forward to our next session on the 27th. Have a good few weeks and stay healthy and safe, and thank you.